Board of Regents District 2 Candidate Forum, sponsored by the League of Women Voters of Boulder County. My name is Elizabeth Crow. I'm a member of the League and serving as moderator for tonight's forum. The League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan political organization. Founded in 1920, we have worked for 100 years to help ensure informed and active participation in government and influence public policy through education and advocacy. To remain nonpartisan, League never supports or opposes political candidates or parties. Given COVID-19 physical distancing guidelines, we are continuing to hold our 2020 candidate forums online rather than in person. We're so pleased to have the partnership of Longmont Public Media to help with our June primary election forums, including this one. According to FCC policy, candidate forums must be broadcast in their entirety, except by media reporting on events. Candidates or their staff are asked not to record this forum. The University of Colorado Board of Regents consists of 9 total members serving staggered 6-year terms. Members consist of 1 elected member from each of Colorado's 7 congressional districts and 2 members who are elected at large. Regents are term limited to 2 terms for 12 years total. The Board of Regents is charged constitutionally with the general supervision of the university and the exclusive control and direction of all funds and appropriations to the university, unless otherwise provided by law. Voters registered as Democrat may vote for 1 of 3 candidates on the ballot. Voters registered as Republican may vote for 1 unopposed candidate on the ballot. Unaffiliated voters will decide which party ballot to fill out, only 1, and vote accordingly. The winner of these races will represent their respective parties and run against each other in the November election for the position of District 2 Regent. The format for tonight's forum will be as follows. Each candidate will have 1 minute for an opening statement. We will then begin with questions which have been submitted electronically online to the League or by League members. Questions have been reviewed by our League of Women Voters volunteer screeners and will be addressed to all candidates rather than directing a question to a particular candidate. We will try to ask the candidates as many questions as time permits. Each candidate will have up to 1 minute or 90 seconds to answer the question, and as the moderator, I will announce the time allowed to answer each question. Tonight's forum participants include, in ballot order, Callie Renison, Democrat, Dave Gross, Democrat, Aaron Harper, Democrat, and Dick R. Murphy, Republican. For opening statements, we will now go in ballot order, starting with candidate Renison. You may begin when you're ready. Oh, please remember to unmute yourselves.
Sorry.
There you go. No problem. Go ahead.
Yeah, so thank you all for your time today. I'm Callie Renison, and I'm an exceptionally qualified progressive candidate running to serve as your next CU Regent. Today, I'll share about how my personal and professional skills and experience will serve me well as a Regent. I'm proud that I've come from very modest means as a first-generation student, now a tenured professor at the University of Colorado, Denver. In that journey, I experienced the same struggles that our students and faculty do today. I understand them. I'm proud that my research has helped to minimize and stop violence against college students, and that my national and local level work in equity and Title IX has assisted so many. I love being at CU, and we have much to be proud of, yet it's clear we can do better, and we must do better. I want to ensure that CU is a system that is affordable, welcoming, safe, and inclusive for everyone. So I'm Callie Renison, and I want to earn your support. Thank you.
And candidate Gross, you're next.
Thanks. So thank you to the League of Women Voters. Hi, my name is Dave Gross, and I'm a candidate for CU Regent. Because I know as a progressive that we need to make CU more affordable and accessible and sustainable for everyone. And the only way we can do that is if we make good pedagogical and financial decisions. I just finished my 25th year at CU. I'm an alum. I earned my PhD in financial economics from CU Boulder, where I'm currently the associate chair of the finance department. And while at CU, I've served on many curriculum, diversity, budget, and leadership committees. 25 years, I'm committed to CU. But I also have 15 years of experience working in public finance. I served as treasurer of the Boulder Valley Women's Health Center and treasurer and president of the Dairy Arts Center. I've provided financial expertise to many progressive organizations in financial distress, helping them achieve their goals. I'm an expert in finance. In fact, that's my title. I currently volunteer as outside expert on the City of Boulder Audit Committee. I've spent years making real-world financial decisions, but at my core, I'm a teacher. That's what I am, that's what I do, and that's what I love, and that's why I'm here today. Because now, more than ever, we need teaching experience, progressive leadership, and—
Candidate Gross, you're out of time, I'm sorry. And Candidate Harper, you're next.
Oh, me, of course. Says, can you hear me yet?
Yes, I'm sorry,
Right.
Go ahead.
That's quite all right. Many of you know me, of course, from my public affairs television program that started on Colorado Public Television and is now on Channel 3, where I interview and bring together leaders from all over the country and the world. And I certainly want to do the same in terms of bringing resources and expertise to CU, and CU needs that. I've already been a fighter for transparency at CU, and currently the governance of CU is really in trouble. And that's why, as someone who has fought for CORA, Colorado Open Records Act, fought for open meetings, we need to do the same at CU. I'm a parent at CU. Not only have I fought for transparency, but when we look at costs and accessibility, that's something, as a former board member of Board of Trustees at Princeton University, I'm the only candidate with experience dealing with 9-figure budgets and dealing with the kind of issues that this university needs to take on. I certainly look forward to answering the questions from the audience, as it were, and look forward to responding to all of them. Thank you.
And Candidate Murphy, please go ahead.
I'm Dick Murphy. I'm a PhD economist. I taught last at University of Idaho, Moscow, Idaho. Before that at Grinnell College and at Drake University. I left the University of Idaho and came to Colorado to replicate my dissertation using Colorado data for the State Department of Education, doing school finance research there. I left the State Department of Education, ended up managing the state treasury for Roy Romer, became his deputy treasurer. I've managed the treasury also for Mike Kaufman on 2 occasions. And then I left and went into investment banking, 30 seconds. Left and went into investment banking in 1981. Did that about 10 years. And then for about 20 years, I did institutional finance for helping people manage money and manage assets and things like that in the state. Did a 4-year stint as
Mr.
the
Murphy?
Deputy Superintendent for Finance at Boulder Valley School District. But all that's ancient history at this point.
Thank you. I'm sorry, we're having a little bit of a hard time hearing you. There's a little bit of a delay, but we'll do our best. Thanks. So for the first, okay. So now we'll go on to the questions.
Yes.
Each candidate will have 1 minute to respond. Please watch for my hand signals at the 30-second and the 10-second mark. If you are mid-sentence when your time is up, please promptly finish that sentence so we can move on to the next candidate. And for the next question, or for the first question rather, we'll start with Candidate Gross. And the first question, we're just going to jump right into one of the major crises we're facing right now, COVID-19. The question is this: given the challenges of COVID-19, including funding shortfalls and the potential decline in enrollment, what would you do to help maintain or increase the level of quality educational services and outcomes? And we'll do 90 seconds to answer that question.
Well, thanks. So right now, all faculty are working on what the fall is going to look like. There is some plans that have been set by the campuses, and they have been refined by the colleges and the departments. And so right now, I am teaching 3 sections in the fall. We have been asked to ensure that 50% of the content is synchronous. Synchronous can either be in person or it can be remote, and then 50% will be asynchronous. And all of us are just super busy trying to figure out how we're going to create a rich, pedagogically sound course that we can deliver to students in a way that is completely safe. I know resources are being marshaled. We are all working with each other. As the associate chair of my department, I've paired together people who are teaching certain courses that are the same in order to work on how to really address the appropriate way to deliver these courses. Resources are being allocated towards recording devices, and I know that we have plans in place to ensure that we have safe distancing, we have PPE, we have testing, and then of course, making sure that everyone knows that we're all partners in this, that we're all responsible for ensuring each other's safety, because safety must come first.
Thank you. Candidate Harper.
Thank you very much. I think this question really illustrates one of the key issues of this campaign, and that is both of my opponents are members of the faculty. And that presents a huge conflict of interest. And I think the COVID-19 situation is a great example of that. When you want to have the best possible board of directors, you want outside directors, you want independent directors. And neither of my opponents qualify for that. They both have biases because they're faculty members. They have subconscious biases, of course, and they have pressure from their peers, their colleagues on the faculty. COVID-19 situation is tremendously serious when you look at the financial implications. There's some backfilling this year from the federal government, but next year, nothing is guaranteed. What that means is we're going to have to ask more of everybody, and especially our faculty. The idea of simply saying we can go remote or go online simply doesn't cut it. And the reason is students have different styles of learning, and some don't learn well at all online or remote. And to be candid, a number of our faculty members are terrible at remote and online instruction. Some of them don't even know how to open a PC or a laptop. So the university needs to undertake a very significant effort to train faculty members. And the bottom line is great sacrifices on the part of all of us, the community, students, parents, taxpayers, but especially the faculty are going to be needed if we're going to be successful in dealing with this crisis.
And Candidate Murphy, you have 90 seconds to answer.
Thank you. I have worked basically since 1990, with the exception of a few years and other things, indirectly from home. And our business has been run out of our house basically from that entire time. I want to encourage everyone to think as much as possible about how to do stuff remotely, because doing stuff remotely is going to be necessary in an environment like this. If we have not actually already coached faculty into understanding how to do things remotely, that's something that we will need to dedicate resources to in the short term, because that has to be done right away. Realistically, it's going to be a matter of changing the way that we think about presenting things and the way that we have done things over the years, because it's going to be necessary to do this. And I think it also presents an opportunity to do things differently than we have done things in the past, and to learn how to actually possibly make a better, more efficient organization. And that's it. Thank
Candidate
you.
Murphy, you're out of time. Thank you. Appreciate everyone's patience while we work with the delay. Thank you in advance for that. Candidate Renison, go ahead.
Sure, yeah. So there are definitely going to be some shortfalls from COVID. We've already seen it. The good news is summer enrollment on the campuses is actually equal to where it was last year, and in some cases higher. So this is good news. It's just speculation that enrollment's going to go down in the fall, but that's what we're preparing for. We've already done things to prepare for the shortfall. Most every faculty member across all the campuses have already been furloughed at some percentage, and we've already accepted pay cuts because we are all in this together. And we did it so that we didn't have to raise tuition on the students, which I think is the right decision. In terms of what are we going to do to continue to provide excellent education, I'm not that concerned about it. We have faculty across the system who have been teaching online, hybrid, and in person for a decade or more, and have done so very well. And we're going to keep doing that. This is an opportunity to embrace online in classes where it makes sense to do so. And the people who are making those decisions are the people in the units, in the departments, so that they can ensure the students get the great education they've always received from the faculty in the CU system. Thank you.
Thank you. And for the next question, we'll start with Candidate Harbour. And this one is about CU and fossil fuels. The question is, would you support CU divesting from the oil and gas industry? Why or why not? And we'll have 1 minute for this question.
So divestiture is something I'm familiar with. When I was on the board of trustees at Princeton University, the divestiture issue focused on South Africa. And the belief was that by divesting in companies that did business with South Africa, we would pressure them in the United States to change policies. And actually, in many cases, that backfired. I think the real solution is to put together all the folks who are concerned about this, environmentalists in particular, and the energy companies, and chart a path towards a non-renewable future, an immediate non-renewable future. And we can do that because when you sit down and actually chart that path, then everyone is dealing with the same facts. I think we're going to see a natural divestiture of fossil fuels, and certainly CU can play a role in accelerating that.
And Candidate Murphy, you're next for 1 minute.
I think that in general, the availability of resources and the use of resources to produce electricity and all the other alternatives that we have is something that will be done by pricing over time. And ultimately, I think that divesting is probably not going to be particularly helpful. I think that doing more research is something that would be particularly helpful. And that's my opinion.
Thank you. Candidate Renison.
Certainly. Would I divest in oil and gas industry? Absolutely, yes. I am very much for that. We live in one of the most beautiful places in the nation. And yet, if you looked outside today or were outside today and saw the air, you saw some of what in part comes from the oil and gas industry. And it makes no sense that we're living like this. That I think that there's more than just divesting. I think that we have to deal with the fallout from that. And that is that CU needs to be a partner with people who work in that industry to help train them for new industries for the future. And I think that we can be great partners in that way.
And candidate Gross.
Of course, CU must divest from fossil fuels immediately. Divestment is necessary. We must be moral leaders. We are well aware of the effects of fossil fuels. The fossil fuel industry doesn't internalize its externalities, meaning they get to pollute for free. We can't be part of this. And the arguments against divestment are weak. This idea that we would lose diversification, this is not true. There's absolutely ways to achieve smart, efficient investing without investing in what we know is poison. So I'm absolutely for divestment.
Thank you. For the next question, we will start with candidate Murphy, and it's regarding the CU president hiring process. What do you feel could or should be improved upon to ensure transparency and inclusion in decision-making around the president hiring process? What specific actions might you take to improve the process? And we'll do 1 minute for this response.
I think a hiring process of this type should be much more public than what we've seen in the past, and that we should talk to as many people as we possibly can about whatever it is that is out there. The business of basically sneaking half a dozen different people in and then not talking publicly to them until you get down to the point to where you only have two, I think is something that needs to be much more public than what we have seen in the past. And I would emphasize that I think that's what we should do, is make it a much more public process.
Thank you. I just want to let you know, Mr. Murphy, we're having a hard time hearing you. There's a little bit of a delay. We're making it, but I don't know. It's possible that turning off a video for a minute might help. I don't know that for sure. We can hear you. It's just a little bit of a delay. I just wanted you to know. Okay, candidate Renison, go ahead.
Thank you. Well, I think that we look at excellent models that are used for hiring elsewhere and we implement it. And we don't have to look far. Sat on many hiring committees in the system, high-level positions, and we use that exact same process. And that is that we review applications, we put forward 3 or 4 finalists, they are made public, and we choose from them to hire. So I think that that has the transparency we need. It also protects candidates who maybe don't want people to know they're looking initially, and they have to agree to be public if they become a finalist.
And candidate Gross.
Thanks. So obviously this process was opaque and flawed. How do you go from someone who is the unanimous sole finalist into a few weeks later having 4 people vote against this person? I understand HR theory that you want to have just a single sole unanimous finalist so that you don't keep people from applying, but that's just not how this needs to work for this kind of role, for this kind of public role at this level. And there just needs to be more effort by the regents when they are interviewing these candidates. This guy held Michelle Bachmann's seat in Congress, and all of a sudden they were surprised by who he was. So obviously more transparency and a process that allows for multiple finalists, but then also more research. Do the work necessary to find out who the person is.
And Mr. Harbour, candidate Harbour.
Thank you. What is clearly needed on the board of Regents is some strong leadership. I'm the only one with a record defending CORA, including in court winning victories for the Colorado Open Records Act and for open meetings. And certainly the Board of Regents needs that desperately. Unfortunately, the Democratic leadership on our board has failed. And that's why we need to strengthen it tremendously. The reality is that we need a new process. We need a real process that's open and that advances candidates. And we're going to have that, I think, just due to the court rulings that have occurred. And most of all, we need to involve the community. We didn't last time. The fix was in from the beginning. Even the search committee was rigged, and our leadership, our Democratic leadership, didn't raise the red flag that needed to be raised at the time for the entire community. If I'm elected, I will make sure that that kind of openness occurs. And again, one last point, there's that conflict of interest where you have faculty members.
I'm sorry, you're all out of
their
time
boss.
for that one. So the next question will start with candidate Renison, and we're going to shift to student debt. The question is, what will you do to ensure CU students are not crippled with debt when they graduate? And we'll do 1 minute for this question.
Great. Well, yeah, this is something that's very important to me. I came from I'm a first-generation college student. I worked at college when it was possible. It's not possible anymore. There are many things we can do. We can't fix it overnight. The first thing is that we have to work as a unit to fight against Tabor and get rid of it so we can start funding our public education system again. But there are other things we can do right now. We need to drop standardized testing, which are hurdles for our most vulnerable students to even get in. We need to drop admissions fees. And we need to do a review of all fees that are charged to students to ensure that they are prioritizing academics and supporting our students. And if they're not, they need to go.
Candidate Gross.
Sorry, was this 60 seconds or 90 seconds?
60.
Okay,
1
thanks.
minute.
So first, we're not going to get a helicopter drop of money from the state. Higher ed funding was just cut by 50%, and we do need to fight to repeal Tabor. But in the meantime, we need to figure out ways to increase student success, which will lower student costs immediately. So the graduation rates on these campuses are low. We need to improve we need to improve the student experience and improve student success by increasing four-year graduation rates. We can do this with academic neighborhoods. We can do this with targeted counseling. We can do this with targeted recruiting. We can do this with support that the students really need to get out of school quicker in order to lower student costs, because it's that fifth year. It's an extra year of tuition. It's an extra year of room and board. It's an extra year of opportunity cost of not working. This is adding 20% to student debt. So the first thing we need to do is increase efficiency. Then we can start focusing on ways to, well, increase funding and through the state and through other sources. Other things, well, I'm out of time.
And candidate Harbor. Unmute. Go ahead and start again. Nope, still on mute, sorry. There you go.
Are we ready?
We're ready, go ahead.
Okay, great. I'm the only candidate who has direct experience in this area. I was chairman in the Colorado Department of Law for the Attorney General's Office of the Collection Agency Board. So I have intimate details of debt collection in these processes. In addition, I was registered with the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission as an investment advisor. And one of the biggest issues is, unfortunately, we are often misleading our students. We have faculty members teaching in different departments that grant degrees that are essentially worthless. So the first thing we need to do is be more honest with our students. The second thing we need to do is to find ways to enhance the value of degrees in some of those departments so they can afford to pay their debts when they get out of school. And the idea of certainly accelerating the process so they're in school a shorter period of time is a great idea, but of course that leads to less revenue. So this is a complex problem and it needs someone with my expertise and experience to help solve it. And I'm committed to doing that.
And candidate Murphy, 1 minute, please.
I think that the fact that we have debt, student debt that is out there that is enormous, is largely, or in many ways, largely the result of the increase in academic cost over the last generation, essentially. The amount of debt and the amount of academic cost has gone up dramatically. A big portion of that that has gone up simply because of the increase in the level of bureaucracy that is taking place at the university level. And the bureaucracy is partially because of the increase in the amount of government funding. And so one of the things that we need to look at is just the reduction in the bureaucracy to attempt to control the cost over time.
So the next question, we will start with candidate Gross, and we're going to shift to the relationships between the campus and the city of Boulder. The question is, what responsibility, if any, does CU have to the city of Boulder and its local non-student residents? If elected, what would you do to foster a positive city-campus relationship? And we'll do 1 minute for this question.
I'm going to waste my first couple seconds. I can't let it go. A worthless degree. That's not a fair thing to say. I'm sorry. So the relationship between CU and the city of Boulder is critical. I've been living in Boulder for 25 years, and so I know the importance of a mutually beneficial and strong relationship between CU, well, and all the communities. CU can't bully. It has to be environmentally sustainable, pedagogically sustainable, but it can't just have unchecked undergraduate growth and not house our students. And we can't be expanding campus in irresponsible ways. The relationship between the city and the university is critical. And as someone who's lived here for 25 years, this is tremendously important to me.
Candidate Harbor.
So this issue is really critical right now because what we're not talking about, or we haven't talked about yet, is CU South. And that's an issue I think that the Regents need to pay attention to, because there are a lot of concerns about how we proceed there. And it seems to me there's some other options that could be explored that would be advantageous to the city, to the university, and especially the people living in South Boulder. When I first lived in Boulder, when I was at Fairview High School, I was at 415 South 46th Street. And then I was over at 1185 Edinburgh Drive and bought my first home at 4465 Grinnell. So I understand how people feel and those sensitivities. I think the university wants to act in good faith. Of course, many university employees live in Boulder as well, so they're concerned about what happens. But we have certainly increased, since I've been here, the number of students, and that's been done to drive revenue. And so we have to take a look at not just increasing revenue, because we shouldn't be increasing students, but how do we cut costs?
Candidate Murphy, go ahead.
We lived in Boulder from 1990 until 2007, when we came out and started being neighbors with Aaron Harbor. But realistically, the degree to which this university is growing and the number of students are growing is much more rapid than the degree to which the population of the state is growing. And realistically, I think that Aaron Harbor's right. A lot of that is about trying to drive revenue. I think that in general, the university has to be responsible for some degree of housing for the students, because that's a portion of what has driven the outlandishly expensive pricing in Boulder. And I think also that it's something that that the university really needs to simply do over time. That's not as pay more attention to the housing for the students and less to everything else.
And candidate Renison.
Yeah, I mean, I think what we need to do is we need to maintain a good relationship, the university with the city. We have to be partners in dealing with these issues. I am just a candidate for Regent, and I already field emails every week from people who live on the Hill, and they're very angry about some of the behavior of some of the CU students. We need to make them aware that they're part of the community and their actions matter. We just have to educate students to make them understand this. I was going to say also, I was just on Lincoln the other day with some friends, and we had to go inside because behind the alley there were students on the roof of the house screaming and yelling obscenities and smoking so much marijuana that it wasn't even tolerable for 5 minutes. That's the sort of thing that we've got to partner with the city to stop. And I think we maintain the good relationship we've had.
Great. The next question, we will start with candidate Harbor. And it's another one regarding students. What is your message to students or potential students who are DACA recipients about their educational opportunities at CU? And we'll do 1 minute for this question.
CU needs to be, I think CU is very welcoming, but it needs to be much more welcoming than it is today. What I proposed in my vision document in 2018, which you can see at aaronharbor.com/vision, what I proposed is to address the need of bringing more people into the university, people who don't think they qualify or don't think they'll be welcome. And my proposal was to have faculty members and staff have a comprehensive program of going out, reaching out to middle schools, not just talking to high school students, but middle schools, and convincing kids, showing kids that they're wanted, talking about the opportunities that they have, so that when kids are in 5th, 6th, 7th grade, 8th grade, whatever, that they can start making plans and have a vision and have an ambition to be in college. We need to do that on a statewide basis, and that will require very significant commitment on the part of everyone at CU. But if we do that, I think we'll have great success taking care of those kids.
And candidate Murphy, 1 minute, please.
My internet went down for a while. Could you please ask the question again?
Sure. And we're still hearing a little bit of a delay, but I think I can tell when you're finished, and we can let it catch up. The question is, what is your message to students or potential students who are DACA recipients about their educational opportunities at CU? And you have 1 minute.
Any student who is in the country, any person who is in the country legally and should be going to school, should be going to school. It's as simple as that. College is there to help people over time. And we want everyone there that can be there. And that's all I have to say.
Candidate Renison.
Sure. So I work at the University of Colorado, Denver in the School of Public Affairs. It is the system's most diverse campus. And I work in a program that is Latina majority. This is what I've been telling our students all along. We're looking at this year, hopefully, that our campus will be a Hispanic serving institution. So I will continue to say the same thing I have. I will fight for my students. We want you. We know you can do it. And I will work with every student as long as it takes for them to succeed and get their degree and go out there and have a great career and serve the people of Colorado.
Candidate Gross.
My message to DACA students is you are welcome at CU. We must prioritize equitable access and sources of funding. Admission criteria must be must be sensitive to the fact that, well, we have this merit myth where we admit people based on these arbitrary merit measures, which absolutely discriminate against under-resourced students. So we know education, it's the great game changer. It improves lives. And so all students in Colorado, all students need to have access to CU. And so again, my message to DACA students is you're welcome, and let's make this work.
The next question will start with candidate Murphy, and it's we touched on it just a little bit a minute ago, but it's about CU South. What is your view of CU South and the negotiations to date about this area? And we'll have 1 minute to answer the question.
Expansion of the campus in any direction and in anything else is something that has to be negotiated with all the legal entities and the landowners around the property. And if we are going to expand into the southern part, then by all means we need to work with both the city of Boulder and with all the landowners around to expand into that area. I think that that's something that if we actually control the population of the university, rather than using students as a method of driving up revenue, that might be something that we don't really need to do. But again, it's not something I've researched enough or talked to enough people about to know whether or not I ought to be doing it. We ought to be doing it.
Candidate Renison?
Great. Yeah, I'm very familiar with this property. 18 months ago, I lived there. I've been Superior since, but I lived adjacent to it. It's clear to me the #1 priority on the CU side of the Boulder property is to protect people who are downstream and sidestream from flooding, to protect lives and property. Because during the floods, homes in downstream flooded, as well as my own neighborhood, which was adjacent. So there's a lot of conflicting information out there about this, but #1, protecting lives and property. #2, when it comes to building housing, we know that any housing there is going to be expensive. So I would hope that we would continue to look to find ways to put affordable housing, but maybe it's not going to be there. So we'll have to see.
Candidate Gross?
Yeah, so it's the variant 1-100 versus possibly a land swap for the Area 3 Planning Reserve in the north end of Boulder. The variant 1 calls for immediate annexation and would allow for the quickest flood mitigation. It's been 7 years, and downstream people, well, that's, they were serious risk. But since variant 1 would coexist with housing, it would likely be more costly for the city to build, and there would likely be less flood mitigation, a 100-year flood versus a 500-year flood. The other side of this is that the land swap, well, it would take years to determine the viability and the suitability of the development. So my feeling is that flood mitigation is necessary. It must happen quickly. I understand the impact to the neighborhood. I understand that it would be more expensive, but people's lives are at risk.
And Candidate Harbour?
So I think in this case, and I mentioned, my time in Table Mesa and Martin Acres and all that, but I think there's been a real loss of trust between many people, many residents of Boulder and the university. And I think that's unfortunate. It's something I'd like to help rebuild. And it's something I think I'm in a unique position to do. I've had, of course, Francis Draper on my program and members of the university before, but not on this issue. But I'm also pleased to say that Ben Binder has kept me very well informed about these issues and has voted for me as well. I think the #1 issue is we have to protect the environment, and that's a very environmentally sensitive area. And that's why I think we should take a look at different options, including the land exchange as a possibility. I don't think we should rush into a decision. The numbers in terms of costs are just extraordinary, tens of millions of dollars, depending on which proposal is accepted. So let's bring everybody together. Let's find a solution that works for everyone. And I think I can provide leadership to do that.
Okay, the next question will go to campus climate and what a welcoming environment may be. And we'll do 90 seconds or up to 90 seconds for this question. The question is, what does it mean to you to be an anti-racist? Do you support the goal of establishing an anti-racist culture throughout the university? And what specific actions would you take to make CU a safe place for Black students, staff, and faculty? And again, you can take 90 seconds for that question. And we start with candidate Renison.
Great, thank you. So I've mentioned I'm a criminologist. My work has focused on the criminal justice system. I've written books that talk exactly about this, and I have for years. What it means to be an anti-racist is that we work against racism, not just sitting back and saying, well, I'm not a racist, so it's okay. I think that we can do a lot of things to become a campus that does more than just attract Black students and does more than just retain them. We have to make our campuses a place they want to be. They have choices. Are we the place they want to be? They need to feel safe, included, and wanted. So I think one of the first things we can do is, we talked a little bit about removing standardized testing, admission fees, and obstacles for a lot of our students that doesn't serve anyone well. But the other thing in terms of faculty and staff is we need to look at how we do hiring, because the way we do hiring does not allow greater diversity, especially as we move up through the layers. And there are simple ways to solve that. And I've got a plan for it. I think we can get there. It's got to be a priority, but we've got to just do it.
Candidate Gross.
Yes, anti-racism, it's ending the silence. It's ending passive behavior. It's active. And CU must increase voices of color among the students and at all levels of faculty and staff. And we haven't done so because this has not been a true priority. Yet we have good plans in place. We have the IDEA plan and the STAR plan on the Boulder campus. And these are solid plans, but we haven't prioritized them. And this must change because prioritization works. So this is a little different, but at the lead school, our new dean prioritized women in business. And she implemented a number of initiatives. And we've increased undergraduate women from 35 to 46% and women MBAs from 29 to 43% in just 4 years. These are huge numbers. You don't move the needle without good plans and prioritization. And so this is what we need to do. And it's not just one big decision. It's not just one event. It's 1,000 decisions by 1,000 people and 1,000 actions that's going to change the climate on campus.
Candidate Harper.
Well, I'm sure everyone is going to say they want to be anti-racist. And I think what's important is to look at, what each of our histories may be and also what we propose to do. So I'm someone who was involved with the civil rights movement ever since I was a small child. Even though I didn't know or recognize the importance of it, I marched with Dr. King for civil rights. One of my mentors was Nicholas Katzenbach, the former U.S. Attorney General, who was on the steps of the University of Alabama confronting George Wallace to desegregate the University of Alabama, who also wrote the Civil Rights Act and the Voting Rights Act as well. Those are the kind of mentors that I've had. I think the reality is one of the things that we need to do is to bring people together. I'm honored to have been endorsed by the WPA, Colorado Black Women for Political Action, in this campaign, in this race. And I think a lot of people recognize that I've used my media position as a platform for the voiceless. And I think that's something that's really critical. I think safety is a huge issue, but also the examples we set. And one of my proposals is, again, talking about the faculty. The faculty needs to step up and our administrators need to step up. And I think one of the ideas is to have everyone, each faculty member and administrator, be assigned to a set of students. So students feel more welcome, more comfortable, and that they have someone they can rely on, which they don't have today.
Candidate Murphy.
I think that this is about leadership as much as anything else, and that having a board of regents that looks at the university from the perspective of diversifying and making sure that there are methods and systems in place is a critical piece. And I really think that is the one of the more important things in the whole system. One of the things that was interesting to me is that when I was in graduate school, my best friend in graduate school was a black guy from Louisiana, and when people talked to him about me being a white Arkansas, he said, "Yep, that's how I know that we're friends, is because we talk." And I think that's a major piece of it, is keeping talking about this and keeping communicating with everybody about what's going on and what has to be going on. The whole idea of making sure that we are not biased against someone is a critical piece of this. And I think that's again, that's a leadership role.
And we have time, I think, for one more question. And so we'll get that in before we have closing statements. The question is, and we'll start with candidate Gross, how would you address salary inequities among faculty and staff? And we'll do 1 minute for that question.
Yeah, there's a huge disparity amongst the faculty, amongst the staff, and at different levels. We have numerous faculty who teach at essentially the adjunct level who aren't paid a living wage. And we absolutely have staff who dedicate their lives to education who aren't paid a living wage. And there's disparities across campuses. And I would absolutely support, well, we call it equity and compression raises. And these are absolutely things that I would support. We need to have people earn a living wage who are doing the work that's necessary for what we do on campus.
Candidate Harper.
So I think this is a great example of where the issue of conflict of interest is so significant, and that both of my opponents are faculty members and have a vested interest in what happens here. The reality is that tenured faculty members are obviously doing well, non-tenured are not. Adjunct faculty members get paid a pittance, and no one's talked about the use of graduate students. And all of this is driven by money. All of this is driven by the fact that we have administrators with bloated salaries. We have some faculty members, many faculty members making six-figure salaries, and then we have graduate students who can barely afford to eat. So I'm for having the folks who aren't tenured, for example, have the right to organize. And if we're going to flatten salaries, as was just suggested, we're going to need leadership. And my guess is it's not going to be from the faculty who are making the most money. And my guess is my opponents are not in the category of making minimum wage.
Candidate Murphy.
I think that across the course of the university, the market-driven salaries that people are making that are not at the university should be something that is considered as a part of the university. And I agree completely, though, that the fact that adjunct members and teaching assistants and graduate students are basically starving is a major issue, and that's the reason that I think that some of the people end up with as much debt as they end up with is because of problems of that type. But realistically, it's going to be difficult to look at how the market for people with similar degrees that are not in the university should should affect the wages in the university. Thank you.
And candidate Renison, thank you.
Sure. When I started at the University of Colorado, I came in not on the tenure track. In fact, I was an adjunct initially. Then I moved on to the tenure track. I've also served as Associate Dean of Faculty Affairs, so I have seen these disparities, not only within departments and on campuses, but across campuses. My belief, my strong belief that we have to address these disparities was recognized as I was endorsed by the University of Colorado United Campus Workers for this race, because I believe in it. The fact is, these data exist. We could fix this right now with the money, but we have to have the institutional courage to do it.
Thank you. Well, that concludes the question and answer portion of the forum. And now we'll go to closing statements. Again, you have 1 minute to provide your closing statement, and we'll go in reverse ballot order, starting with candidate Murphy.
One of the things I've done over the years is deal with institutional finance for large institutions, multi-billion-dollar entities and things of that type. One of the cases in point is in the early 90s, the University of Colorado had asked me to come in and deal with a major issue for them because they had a fraudulent investment management firm come in and basically take a bunch of money from them and other entities. I worked with that, and I will work with the university on financial stuff, and that's one of the things that I'm there for.
Candidate Harper, go ahead, please.
As
I think
well.
you're on mute. Go ahead. Start again. Go ahead.
First of all, I want to thank the League of Women Voters for holding this forum. I've worked with the League in the past, of course, in some of the political positions that I've held. Most of all, I want to stress that we are in an extraordinarily serious situation. The university is facing a huge financial crisis, especially starting next year. And when you look at enrollments dropping, especially at our Denver and the University of Colorado Springs campuses starting in just a couple years, that's going to exacerbate the problem. I'm the only candidate with experience in terms of governance of a major university, the only candidate who's dealt with a 9-figure university budget before, the only candidate who has a record of transparency, who has the high technology knowledge from the software companies I've run to bring and to promote ways to solve our problems and do things more efficiently at CU. And most of all, I'm not an employee, as my two Democratic competitors are. And to avoid that conflict of interest, I would ask for your vote, because that's the only way we'll get unbiased decisions.
Candidate Gross.
All right, I'm going to do it again. I'm going to spend a second talking about conflict. I mean, this is fundamentally a question of ethics. I mean, I'm a teacher. I'm grateful for the responsibility the city of Boulder and Women's Health and the dairy and all these organizations that have entrusted me with over the years. And I've been supported by people from all these organizations. If you want to see how I'll behave as regent, look at my past. Look at what I've done so far. Okay, so now to my close. CU spent the last decade climbing out of the hole from the last financial crisis, and it's likely going to spend the next decade climbing out of the hole from this one. We need experienced educators, experts in finance, and dedicated community servants. I've spent my life's work, my career working in these areas, teaching finance for 25 years. I'm a finance expert. I'm a community servant. And I'm proud to have the support of many of my colleagues at each of these organizations at which I've worked. The job of Regents is the nexus of my experience. And right now, more than ever, we need a progressive finance expert on the board of Regents. I'm Dave Gross, and I'd be honored to earn your vote. Thank you.
And candidate Renison.
Right. Thank you for joining us to hear about our great university and to think about the leadership needed at CU to take us into the future. I have loved being a candidate and visiting people in the 10 counties in Congressional District 2, where I've heard hopes and concerns. I've earned the endorsement of almost 50 Democratic leaders, including nearly every current and former Democratic regent, and I received 83% of the delegates at the CD2 Assembly. I am humbled by this support. I'm a first-gen student, a proud community college graduate, and now a full tenured professor at the University of Colorado, Denver. And while the system has much to be proud of, it's not working for everyone, and I know we can do better. I want to ensure that CU is a system that is affordable, welcoming, safe, and offers a sense of belonging for everyone. I want us to be a system that diverse students, staff, and faculty want to be a part of. I'm Callie Renison, the most progressive and most qualified candidate here tonight. I respect and value our students, staff, and our fabulous faculty, as a regent should. I have what it takes to be a part of the team that makes CU work for everyone, and I would be honored to earn your vote. Thank you.
Well, on behalf of the League of Women Voters, I'd like to thank all of our candidates, not only for your participation in tonight's forum, but also in this democratic process. Running for office and serving as an elected official is hard work, and we really appreciate your efforts. I want to thank our League Primary Candidate Forum volunteers, Joe Porter, Peggy Leach, our administrator, Mandy Nuku, and Sergio Angeles with Longmont Public Media. I also want to give a special shout out to all of our League members who are CU bound, current CU students, or recent graduates. And thank you for all your work for supporting voter education and civic engagement at every age. And finally, thanks to you, the forum audience. This is one of these elections where maybe not a lot of people know when they walk in, when they open that ballot envelope, what a CU region is or what it does. So we really hope that this forum has been helpful to you in learning more about these candidates and preparing you to vote smart. Colorado has one of the most efficient and accessible voting processes in the country, so let's be sure and use it. For more information on League of Women Voters and candidate and voter information for this election, you can go to vote411.org and check out our website at LWVBC.org. This forum will be rebroadcast on Longmont Public Media's Channel 8 and also appear on various social media platforms. Again, you can find more information on that at LWVBC.org. But for now, thank you all again for participating and have a good evening.
Thank you.